So now that we know what some of the options are for throwing together these kinds of primitive shapes that we have here in our bashing layer, what I'm going to do in this tutorial is the first one. I'm not going to bother things like merging this piece with this cylinder and stuff like that, because I'm only ever going to see it from a distance, and if we use the edge rounding feature in the material properties, that's going to look just fine. We're not going to see the difference. We could go to the trouble of adding all that geometry, but again, why waste time on work that doesn't matter? So let's start with the big pieces first. This piece here just needs to be sort of cleaned up and hardened up a little bit. There's one thing that is wrong about it, though. If I go back to my reference here, what it should be is a big piece of like 4x4 inch tubing that then just transitions very quickly down to a piece of maybe 2x4 or 1.5x4 tubing, something like that, some kind of extrusion. So if I go to the top here, we've got this long transition that I created. I'm going to want to fix that. So let's go here, and I'll use the middle mouse to select all those verts, and then Control middle to deselect the stuff having to do with that sprocket, and just pull that forward. And I think we're just going to go to about there, something like that. And then also we want to get the inside face of that and pull it inward so that it's visually inside the car body here. You know, in real life, it doesn't just cut into the car body. It's, you know, something else is going on there, but we're never going to see that. I mean, we're not going to notice it anyway from a distance, so who really cares? Now, also, when we go to smooth this out by hitting Shift-Tab, this is going to become a tube, which is not ideal. And also, this stuff is going to get really stretched out. Okay, so the first thing to do would be to select these really long polygons, the super long ones. Alt-C for loop slice, and I'm going to add maybe 8 of those here. And I'll add another 8 of those there. And I think I need to add at least 2 of those there. Oops. Add 2 there. And I think right about here we could add 1 here. And again, this is just to even out those polys so that when we do go to smooth this out, things are going to look more uniform. So if I select this, then at least the tube is roughly the correct shape. And then we could do a vertical couple of loop slices here. It's going to harden up the square extrusion a little bit. Go to the inside and do the same thing. Add a couple more there. Oops. No, I already did that. Okay. Goes all the way around. Perfect. And then go to the top and do this as well. That goes all the way around. And then the reason it went all the way around is because if I hide this, these wrap all the way around in the front. I forgot about that. But anyway, so if we just select that stuff and delete it, we don't really need it. I can unhide. There we go. Let's go to the right view. Take this guy and move it down so that it sort of fits a little bit better. That's good. Also, let's go to the back and do the same thing. So I'm just going to select this guy and Shift-A. Can hide that. Select all of this stuff and delete it. Once again, U to unhide. Right view, that's just fine. Okay, so now back in perspective. We can harden this edge several ways. I'm just going to use edge weights. But you could obviously use a bevel if you prefer. Edge weights make me happy. I just like them. We're going to add a nice edge weight there just to harden up that edge some. And we are done with that piece. That's as far as we need to take it. Now this piece is going to meet up with it perfectly. If I hit Shift-Tab, you can see it meets up pretty nicely. But there are a couple things I want to fix about it. First of all, let's select this and do a loop slice around there. Then select some of these polys here, some of these ones here as well. R for scale, and I'm just going to squeeze those in. So we're making a more like kind of blade-like appearance on this thing. And then also we want for these bottom and top edges to be a little bit hard. So let's select those, Shift-W and click in the viewport. That'll harden those up. And this back poly here is rounding off and we don't want that. So let's select these and delete them. So we come straight up and butt up against that piece there. And that's about done. Perfect. So let's just mess with this guy. We'll select the 2 sides of this. B for bevel. Oh. B for bevel. Click in the viewport. Do that. Shift click and then drag this in. Shift click, drag that in. Shift click, drag that in. We've got plenty there to work with. And we can smooth this if we want to. It's kind of overkill, frankly, because it's so tiny. But I'll do it. Let's make these long polys a little bit shorter by subdividing this, maybe, I don't know, 4 times using a loop slice. And that should do it. So we can select this guy, Shift-Tab to smooth it, grab these edges, both interior and exterior, and Shift-W, click in the viewport. That looks about right. Select this stuff, copy it, go to the right view, start to move this one back, paste, Control-V, move this back to about here, select this stuff and delete it, move this one up, go to the top view, move that out, grab this stuff and move it back. Now I'm moving really fast on this because I'm just showing you the basics here. This is very simple stuff that you should be able to do by all rights on your own at this point after all the practice we've been doing. I'm going to harden up those edges with a nice Shift-W. So this is really starting to come together. The only other parts that are really going to matter visually very much, I mean, this stuff, frankly, is not, I mean, the edges aren't round or anything, but who really cares? I don't think it matters. I can just do, why don't I just do an edge bevel right here? Just to round that. I'll set the round level up to like 4, so we get a little bit of a fillet on this edge. And I'll also delete these interior faces, because I don't think we need those. Then select this edge, and this edge, and these. I think that's everything we need here. Then do a B for bevel. Just round that off a little bit. Rather than using sub-D. You know, we could use sub-D for that, of course, and do edge weights and all that stuff. But for big, kind of prismatic shapes like this, rectilinear shapes, you really don't need to do that. It's kind of just overkill and completely unnecessary. That piece doesn't need to be rounded. I've decided. Executive decision, that is fine. That is too. It's just a plate, after all. Then this front plate is totally fine. It doesn't even need any detail. We're not even going to see it. Now we move on to this stuff down here. And like I was saying in the last video, it's all about just choosing what complexity you want to add. Don't add any complexity that you don't need. So here I'm going to remove some of these edge loops that are unnecessary. Maybe just scooch this stuff around a little bit. I don't think I even need this edge loop. Can probably remove that. Now we'll just select the edge loops that I want to round. Start with these ones, how about? Actually, we'll just do these ones first. B for bevel. Drag those out. I'm using a round level of 4, and that's looking like plenty to me. I really don't need more than that. So, and then I'll add another one down here. This one's I'm doing separately because it needs to be a different size from those, because it's a different angle. We'll get this one right about like that. This one's going to be smaller, about like that. And this one we'll make nice and big. Something like that. That's okay. Delete that edge. We'll get all of these edges on the front face. We don't even really need them. We can just get rid of them. We don't have to do those arbitrary edges that we did in the last demo video. To be honest, those are sometimes useful and sometimes just overkill. This is a case where I think they would be overkill. So we now have these two faces. Let's select them. Do B for bevel. Pull those in somewhat. Shift click. Pull them back somewhat. And I'm getting some weird stuff happening with some of these edge normals being not quite perfect, which is causing these to be a little bit jaggy. So here's a trick for you. If you find that's happening, don't bother with the bevel. Just use like scale, for example, or move to move those in instead of bevel. So things aren't trying to move along their normals and instead are just moving along a direction, which may make more precise results. And that about does it, folks. Only a couple more things left to do. I would just take my poly mode. Let's select all these polys on the end that we've just created and get rid of those. We can scale all this stuff from the center to 0 on the X using our origin action center, or Alt-W on the keyboard. Then I'll select this and Shift up arrow a couple of times. W for move. Use my automatic action center. Just move that back. That looks pretty good. Move that back just a little bit more, just a hair. That's better. And we're good on both sides. So that's all we have to do there. And then this guy, we could do the same thing. Let's just, as we did with the other cylinder, that is. And let's just create a couple of bevels here. Looks good. And I don't even think we need to subdivide that. Because again, from a distance, who cares? We're not going to see it. This guy is actually a sort of a cinch thing. We need two little pieces coming out that a screw can go through. And again, you know, from a distance, we don't need this to be subdiv. It's just not going to matter. So here's what I'll do. I'm going to select these two guys, B for bevel, turn off group polygons for a second, and just bevel those both in a little bit. Then I'll shift click to pull those out. And instead of dragging them out along their normals, I'll just change to the move tool, W for move, pull that out a bit. Edge mode, select these edges, B for bevel, and pull those in. So that's all we need to do. We've got a little cinch there. You can see it. If you wanted to put a pin through that, you know, to look kind of like a screw, we could do it. Here's a nice tip for modeling something like this. I want to put a circle right there to kind of extrude straight through. What we can do is enable our grid and go to work plane, align work plane to selection, and that'll put the work plane right there. So now I can grab my cylinder tool, drag something out. And in fact, I'm just going to control drag one of these handles so we're getting X, Y, and Z equal, and then drag this down so it goes through everything all the way to the other side, and drop the tool. There we go. That is plenty of detail. Okay, so with that, I think we are just about finished with this. I don't think we need to take this very much further at all, at least not with this thing in symmetry mode. So let's go back and select this, the instance, the bash instance layer. I'm going to right click that in the item list and go down to change type, mesh. And that's just going to convert that into actual mesh geometry here. And then I could take that geometry and cut it, go to the bash layer, paste it in, and notice that the polys are inverted. They didn't look inverted in the other mesh, but they are inverted here. That's because this mesh item is set to scale on the X at negative 100%. If I take these polys and cut them, set that scale back to regular, just positive 100%, paste those back in, they're inverted. That's one of the weird things about working with negative 100%. It does invert polys unless you're in the context of an item transformation, in which case it's smart enough to do that. So what we need to do is just hit F to flip those inside out. Now that these are right side out, we have two meshes with right side out polys. Perfect. Let's select both of them, right click, merge meshes. Hit OK. It's going to put those all into a single mesh item. Now, when we select that mesh item and go to our viewport properties, we can set our visibility, show centers, all. Whoops, I actually just want selected. And we can see that the selected item center is right here in the sort of middle of the bashing geometry. We set that up earlier, if you'll recall. Let's select this item and go to Edit, Center to Bounding Box, Center. It's going to put that in the middle for us. Excellent. And finally, let's reset our work plane. Let's go to Work Plane, Reset Work Plane. And now we have a single mesh item, and it happens to be symmetrical. Go to X Symmetry, and we can work with this symmetrically. One last bit. Some of these bits are not connected to each other because all we've done is just kind of combine these things into a single layer, but we haven't actually merged anything. So I would actually, first of all, it looks like these aren't quite centered. Let's take those, just because I see a seam there. Go to Vertex, Set Position to 0 on the X. Now everything is zeroed out. Now we can go to Vertex and Merge. Just do Automatic Mode. Hit OK. Now anything that was touching is now merged together, and I think that's looking like it did the right thing across the board. Now why did that stuff merge? Oh, I think it was probably because we have some coincident geometry that I didn't intend. Well, anyway, it doesn't matter. Totally fine. So that is that. I think that's probably as much detail as we need in that. All we need is to maybe do this. Let's add some detail here. Turn off symmetry a second. Let's add a loop slice up here. Go to the right view. Let's select this edge loop. Move it up some, like so. Then we'll take this stuff here, and I think I'll just B for bevel with group polygons enabled. So we'll just pull this out a little bit with our bevel, so we get sort of a sleeve around this guy. And then we want this to be sort of a flange that goes, that sticks to this surface on the back. So let's go to the right view, take this edge, move it down so it's below where we want it to start, down here. Let's grab a linear fall off from one side to the other and drag this guy up so that it roughly matches the underlying shape that we're going for. Perfect. Turn off that fall off. I'm going to scooch it up just a little bit higher. Then I'll B for bevel, just to bevel that edge, just the edge itself, with a round level of 0. Then it's going to give me a an edge selection after I do the bevel. Just Alt-click on poly mode to convert that to a polygon selection. Then I can B for bevel. And if I pull this stuff out, it's going to go along its normals, which is going to take it in all different random directions. So from here, I'm going to have to scale these a little bit more manually in the direction that I want. I'll just use the Selection Action Center, scale that stuff out, and that looks okay. Then we'll take these bottom polys here. Let's do an L for loop on that. Get a few of those and delete them. And take this edge loop here, go to the right view, and I'm just going to move it up some so it's more perpendicular to the underlying surface. And we just need to kind of snap these edges now to this background mesh a little bit. So for this, we'll go to Basic. Let's go to Mesh Constraints, Background. Instead of Point, this time we're going to use the Vector Background Constraint. W for Move. And if we move with Action Center set to Selection, we can move along the normal here. And as we hit the background mesh, see it just kind of sticks there. Zonk, right to that background mesh, which is exactly what I wanted. Perfect. So now I can take this edge. Let's go to the Edge Tools. Let's do Edge Slide with Duplicate enabled. Edge Slide is awesome. We're going to slide this up, and instead of by percent, we're going to do a distance, and that way we get a nice even offset coming right on up to about there. Then I can select this edge loop and delete it. Now we're meeting up really perfectly here. Select this. I can bevel that out some. Just a single edge loop is just fine. And then select this stuff and Shift Tab to smooth it. Now this stuff is going to be needs to be hard, so let's add an edge weight to it. Something about like that. And also this looks variable. Looks like this is going in a weird direction because this stuff needs to be subdivided. It's too long. So let's add some loop slices in there. Clean that up a bit. I'll add one loop slice in here also. That should clean up that edge quite a bit. So that's looking pretty good. Next I want to take this, also add an edge weight to it just to harden that up. And that looks pretty close to right, I think. I think that's pretty good. Select this top edge, P for poly. Select this, B for bevel. Bevel that in, shift click, bevel it in, shift click, pull it back, shift click, pull it back, shift click, and etc., and etc., and etc. And there's a little tube sticking up in the front. All right, folks. I think that just about does it, my friends. Let's show our tires. In here, I'll show our instances as well. And that's looking really good. I'm going to toggle my grid. Let's toggle background shading. Folks, this is coming together. This is really coming together. I'm very excited about this. Okay, so I think we're about ready to start cleaning up a little bit. We've got kind of a mess over here. Let's do a little housekeeping.